So good morning. We're looking at Learning Outcome 2 today. So yesterday we looked at just the main features and outcomes of partnership working. So we looked at different elements of it, what sort of barriers there are, how we can overcome those barriers, and how to deal with certain conflicts. And we also looked at what some conflicts might be. Today our learning outcome is understand how to evaluate partnership working. So there's 4 assessment criteria. 2.1 is identify the contribution they make to enhance partnership working. 2.2 is evaluate their strengths and weaknesses in relation to partnership working. 2.3, identify ways to improve your own practice. And then 2.4, explain how to review the effectiveness of partnership working in achieving the agreed outcomes. So I'd just like to bring your attention to the indicative content.
Yeah.
It just shows you exactly what needs to be covered for each point. So you're making sure that you're actually on the right track when you're doing your assignment. It's really helpful. Because to be honest, there can be a million things that you could answer these with, and probably they would be right, but it's not what the awarding body wants. So it's nice that they've got a good, clear outcomes over there.
Yeah.
Let's go on to the PowerPoint. So I would have recapped. We've already looked at what we've looked at. So 2.1, we're going to identify the contribution they can make to enhance partnership working. So first, we're just going to look at what partnership working is. Now, partnership working, it just refers to a range of actions or things that certain groups of people do to come together to achieve a common purpose. So 2 different groups coming together, having shared goals, and their outcome is the same. That's what they're trying to work towards.
Yeah.
Within healthcare, partnership is a collaborative relationship between 2 or more parties, and it's actually based on the trust, equality, and mutual understanding to achieve your goal again. So same thing, to be honest. But partnership working, it does have risks and benefits, and then it has a shared accountability as well. So you know that you're both responsible for all the good things and all the bad things.
Yeah.
Now, we've got partnership working in social work. So we're going to talk about the voluntary, community, and social enterprises sector here as well. So VCSE. Now, we know that partnerships can be formed between a lot of different agencies and organizations who again have the shared interest. But when you have social care and partnership working, you need to try to make sure that you're receiving the high quality of care. So you're doing joint up working. Now, I actually wanted to ask you, within your work, because you're within the care industry, is there any partners that you actually work with that do partnership work? Are you co-partnered with anyone?
Yeah, we co-partner with the nurses and then our medical centre. With the nurses and things, we do shared care plans for wounds and dressing cares. Mary Curie, when we have residents on end-of-life care, we work in partnership with them. We work with quite a lot, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, you can see there's so many ranges. Obviously, when you get somebody, you might have nurses coming into your establishment, or you might have people that are being discharged and going home or having care from home. Yeah. So obviously, there's a load of different services that you can. And with it, you're probably even sometimes watching like dressings and things take place, or you're getting taught, aren't you, to do a different procedure or implement something. Now, when we were talking about the VCSE, so with the voluntary community and social enterprises, they're quite an important partner, and it's actually some principles have been agreed for these, and we'll go over those next.
Yeah.
Now, the VCSE organizations, they actually work towards improving health outcomes, and they try to tackle health inequalities. So they not only try to deliver services, but they also try to, shape and design and advocate for the service user. So they want to be there as a representation for them. They want to be the voice for them. So that's somebody that can be the middleman in a way. And that can actually show that, we're voluntary. We're not getting paid to do this. We're actually here to look after you because we want to be here. And we're here to hear your voice.
Mm-hmm.
and they help in that way. So to support this, the NHS England, they've developed a partnership and put tools and resources into place. So they've got principles for VCSE engagement. They've got a VCSE health and wellbeing program and a VCSE advisory group. We'll actually just go over the principles because that's the most important thing that we need for this topic. So there's a number of principles. I'm not going to read through every single one of these. They're here for you to look at, but we'll just go over the main points. So one principle is to be inclusive and reach into communities. So NHS England will make sure there's engagement and that it's inclusive and that organisations are interested. And then the VCSE, ensure that they work inclusively and that they're committed to achieving the same goals. They want to identify the work with organisations and they want to include all members of the VCSE and the Wellbeing Alliance to look at different ways that, health conditions can be managed or worked towards. You want to look at challenge inequalities as another, then demonstrate impact and build the evidence base. Then we've got adopt co-production. So VCSE want to be like equal partners and they want to have a agreed approach. And then they're going to work collaboratively with NHS England as equal partners. Another principle is be transparent, challenge and be a critical friend. So challenge our thinking, identify ways in which the programs can be, done, and also to look at any disadvantaged communities, see what challenges there, what can be done better, what sort of solutions they can come up with. So it's quite a nice system.
Excuse me.
No worries. And then the last point is working for the same goal. So obviously the VCSE and NHS England and all the organisations within it are they're trying to work for the same outcome. They want to work in partnership so that they can reach more people and just, be there to have the same outcome, which overall is a good quality of care for the service users and support for the families. So that was just the principles. Now, we've got a few points here that just show the benefits of working in partnership. So it just shows that it inspires great ideas, you can strengthen relationships and share your experiences, increases your capacity so you're able to see a lot more people than you probably would. So if you have an establishment that has 30 staff members and you're working singularly, then you're only going to be able to see a limited amount of people with your appointment times or with the amount of space you have there, how many rooms you can cater for certain people. But like you said, you've got Marie Curie, you've got nurses, you can actually branch out. You can actually look after people that are within their own home as well now. So it's a greater outreach there. It provides additional venues, so you might want to partner up with another care home, which you work together, support each other, and you've got additional rooms there. And then we look at what good partnership is and how this can actually be enhanced. Now, the following points that I've come up with are just basic, simple points that you probably already do on a daily basis anyway, but it's very important for partnership working.
Yeah.
So you need to have open communication, like we said yesterday, regular meetings, update each other, email each other, make sure your records are up to date and, liaise within each department. So even if you're in your own workplace and you've got different interdepartmental meetings and so on, just make sure you're in the loop, you know what's going on.
Yeah.
Respect each other. Don't look down at roles. Every single role is important. You can be a cleaner, you can be somebody who's doing shift work, or you can be somebody who's voluntary or, temp work, or someone who's permanent. It doesn't matter. Everybody's there to do their work. They know what they're doing. They're all trained in it. Collaborate with partnerships. So work together, share your services. Again, like yesterday, if you've got specialist resources, share them, have access to them. Just make sure that you're covering different aspects of the care for the person that you're going to see in one appointment if it's possible.
Yeah.
Set objectives for staff. So everybody needs to know what they want to do. Like you said, you've got a list that you put up with within your own workplace where everybody knows exactly what their tasks are so they can just get on with it. So it's a really good thing to have in place. So everybody knows what their objectives are. They know exactly what they need to do. And then they have an accountability. So they need to know that, oh, AFSHA is responsible for this. This hasn't been done. Why haven't these sheets been changed in these empty rooms? She should have done it. So they know that they should come to me and say, could you please get on with that? Have an open mind. So mix it up. Take on tasks. So there's a lot of things that I wasn't aware of doing particular things within my own role. And I get presented with, oh, can you make this for us? Or can you do this for us? And obviously online teaching compared to face-to-face teaching there's a world difference. So be willing, no matter which sector you're in, just be willing to take on tasks that you might not be familiar with. And, you know, you do get used to it after a couple of mishaps. Make sure you adhere to the CARE Act. So you're obviously adhering to the CARE Act of 2014. So obviously you know what the CARE Act is. It just sets out in one place what local authorities' duties are in relation to assessing the needs and also the eligibility for funding for support and care. And then the last slide on this, so other contributions to partnership working are be non-judgmental. So this is obviously mental, not, you know, mentally doing this. So don't judge people. Mistakes can happen. And I know sometimes it's human nature just to hold a grudge and say, oh, they didn't put this IV in right, or they don't know how to do this dressing. We're not going to ask them again. Sometimes people are off their game. They fall through cracks. They're not paying attention. So rather than judging them and what mistakes they've happened, just see maybe they can be trained, maybe they can, you know, shadow somebody instead and look at just, you know, reinforce their training so that they're actually confident in what they're doing. This is especially true for new care workers or new workers that come into a new job. They're very green, they don't know what's going on, they're underconfident, and it does take time for them to develop. So negotiate, so be able to negotiate and delegate your services. So there's some tasks that you'll love doing and there's some tasks you'll hate doing. You might want to, you know, even within your own department, you might want to say, right, I don't mind doing this task today, but I'm not going to do it every single day. Maybe we can split it up and have a rota where somebody else is doing, you know, catheter changes, or they're, you know, doing personal care for particular people. So it's not just the same person that is landed with the same job daily.
Yeah.
And then also be assertive and confident, and this will actually lead to effective teamwork. So this is where everyone is aware of their responsibilities and they've got the shared goal. Now, just to point out where I've put these blue highlights, they're actually the terminology that I'd love for you to have included when you're doing your assignment.
Yeah.
Yeah, so try and include those in.
No problem.
So that was just 2.1. Is there any questions or anything you want to go over?
No.
Brilliant. Let's go on to 2.2. So this again, quite explanatory, straightforward. Evaluate strengths and weaknesses in relation to partnership working. So we've got a few strengths and weaknesses here. So strengths, I believe, are the range of skills available. You know, you might not have had somebody within your own workplace that has a particular skill, but somebody else in a partnership will. Coordinated service for service users, efficiency and effectiveness, better accessibility, and in an ideal world, shared goals and working towards the same outcomes. Now, you've also got weaknesses, so you might have to have some compromises that might be need to make. Some people might have to do more work, some people might have to stop doing their favourite things. integration is the most difficult step. Different agencies or disciplines might have different objectives. So like I was saying, in an ideal world, you all want to work towards the same thing, but normally that doesn't really happen. And then another weakness is discrimination between services. So some services might think, oh, we're better than them. Or other services might think, oh, they're too hoity-toity. Why are they working with us? You know, it's just trying to challenge those discriminations.
Mm-hmm.
So we look at conflict here. So we need to look at issues objectively. So in regards to conflict, so how can each issue be resolved? So you've got to look at different techniques of problem solving when you're looking at conflict. But to look at what the problem is, what caused the problem, think about some ideas that might be work towards, you know, sorting this problem out, and then select the best solution and then take action. Mm-hmm. So if two members of staff that don't like working together, maybe sometimes you might have to just chuck them into a room and get them to work together, try and get them to cooperate with each other. That might work. If you find it doesn't, it might just be best to rotor them onto different schedules and things. Just is the best. Sometimes you're going to have to bargain, so decide who is best for the task and have an open conversation. Now, if somebody asks me and says, Afsha, can you go and teach math skills? I'd probably, my maths isn't bad, but it's not that good that I can go and teach somebody math skills. And I'd be like, oh, no. But if you come and say to me, can you teach this person how to read, or can you teach them this child phonics, or can you create this lesson plan? I'd be like, yeah, of course I can do that. So look at what the best points, who's good at what, and give them tasks in accordance to that. Then cooperative conflict. Now this is a good thing actually. So we can also call this mutual gains or interest-based or win-win is something I'm more familiar with. So sometimes having conflict which is good is a good thing to have, because conflict isn't necessarily bad. Sometimes you might have a patient where you want to look at a certain treatment care or look at a care plan. You might think one thing, but then I might think another. And not necessarily we're not wrong, but we can sort of talk to each other and say, why is yours better? What can we do? Can we come to a middle ground? What's the best course of action? So it's nice to have something of cooperative conflict within the place. Then we need to have, everybody needs goals, and they must be considered, their needs and goals need to be considered so that you can actually maximize the outcomes for each person and each party. And then you're going to challenge discrimination and report any concerns. So if you think that there's something going on, or if there's an issue that you're not happy with, there might be, in my career when I was in schools, within primary schools, there's many times where I saw certain members of staff not speaking in a way I would speak to certain students. And if it doesn't sit right with you, you have to either, it depends on what you would do. Sometimes if you're comfortable with a member of staff, you'll go and speak to them. Especially with the level of management that you're at, you'll probably end up doing this anyway.
Yeah.
So if it's just a co-worker speaking to a co-worker, it really depends. Do they go and talk to each other? How would you challenge it? But at the end of the day, reporting it, challenging it is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're going to look at evaluation. So have a good evaluation system in place. And you'll be familiar with carrying out appraisals. You were talking about how when you're on the floor working anyway, that you do natural observations anyway, and you'll point out, okay, you know, giving good feedback, giving them feedback which is constructive as well. You know, it's part of that system. Within that, you'll probably end up getting feedback from families and friends and colleagues about certain things they do and don't like. So all of this would work towards evaluation. And then monitoring. So you might want to monitor things yourself, or you might want to have an independent regulator. So depending on what your profession is, you might have the CQC, you might have the Nursing and Midwifery Council, the General Medicine Council, so it really depends. There's too many to list. Then you'll probably have a development plan. So these are the points we'll go. So conflict, evaluate, develop. So you're going to establish a partnership. Obviously, when you're establishing partnerships, it's quite tricky. You might have the same visions and goals, but then again, you might not. If you don't, talk to each other, see if there's any common ground. If there is, then establish a partnership. If there isn't, there's no point in getting together just for the funding, because it's not going to work.
Yeah.
When you're working with other people, it can be extremely challenging. When it's quite time consuming just trying to manage what you're doing in your own workplace anyway. But when you're trying to get hold of a particular person or meet someone or do a meeting, you can feel like you're doing a lot of chasing, so you need to be patient.
Definitely.
And then the last one, slide for this, I've put some approaches to partnership working, some tips. So be clear and honest about what you want from the beginning. This is the next point is something I always think it can go towards any aspect of life. Don't agree to something, to do something that you know you're going to be difficult in doing, or you've not got time to do, or sometimes you might not be able to deliver. There's no point in saying, yeah, I'll get this presentation off to you in 2 days, or say, yeah, I can make 30 care plans within 7 days for you. If you don't have the time to physically sit there for that 3-4 hours a day to make those care plans, then you're not going to be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So the best partnerships help to build each other, and they bring their strengths to the table. So if you know you're with a partnership who is strong and confident and they've got a lot of skills that will actually help you, then go for it. If you know that you're going to be, putting up the weight for them as well and doing 90% of their work, there's no point. You're just making life terrible.
Yeah.
Don't get into a partnership just to attract funding. It's not worth it. And then we've got a little point here, just understanding partnership working. So the aim of the partnership need to be agreed and understood by all of the partners. So even the staff members, because they're all going to be working together at the end of the day. The partnership needs a good leadership, so it needs to be clear and effective leadership. So you need somebody who is strong and is able to cope with chasing people up and is able to, paper push in a way. And then you need clarity and role division. So make sure you know exactly what everyone's doing and how they're getting on. So everyone knows what their role is and what their expectations are. So that's 2.2. Do you have any questions, Ashlyn, on here? Or any points? Okay, thank you. I'll go on to 2.3. So this is, I like this little section here because it's just all about you. So there's no right or wrong. You're identifying how you are and what you're doing. So 2.3, identify ways to improve your own practice.
Yeah.
Now, I always like it when I want to look at my own practice, look at a SWOT analysis. So you look at what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what sort of opportunities you might have, and any threats. I mean, do you have issues with childcare? Do you have, if you want to do some training, have you got issues with funding? Is there just time in general? Like you're doing this course now, but then you're working a good number of hours during the week as well. Do you have time to attend lessons? Do you have time to, do your assignments? Have you got any constraints? So it's nice to identify what areas might need issues on.
Yeah.
So you're just going to look at your own contributions. So are you meeting your targets? Are you on track? Are you missing deadlines? Are you always late? So your time management, time management for me, I'm very good at my time management, but only when I sit down and actually create a schedule. Now I'll get told that I'll have, for example, my lessons, and I'll have a number of sessions that I need to do. But for those sessions, I might need to update some PowerPoints. I might need to create some new ones. I might need to look at some resources that I need to gather. So when I just think, I sit down, I'm like, oh my goodness, I've got all this stuff to do and I need to do it by, say, Wednesday. It's not, you're just going to really stress yourself out. So I find when I sit down and I've got a diary, I've got a notepad, I'll note everything down and I'll do time scales for each one when I need to do it. And that really helps me with my time management. So it helps me get organized. I take a lot of notes. I do not answer my phone when I'm working. I won't look at it. If I get a ping where it's emailed, I finish my task and then I'll look at what's next. So these things help me. You've got to look at, so again, this is all about you. So you've got to look on, are you taking on too much responsibility? Are you working too much, or do you have little time to relax? Are you working all hours given to you? Sometimes you might bring your work home with you as well. So really try and get a good work-life balance on here.
Yeah.
And then your leadership style, this especially for you will be good for yourself because you're in a leadership role. So you've got to look at what sort of leadership style you actually have. So are you a coach? Are you motivational? Are you laissez-faire? So are you autocratic, or do you delegate your work in a good way? Are you transactional? So are you very performance focused? So you can have a look at what type of your own leadership style is, and that will help you review how you work and what you can do to improve your own practice. Because I know when I'm doing work and there's things that I can delegate or pass on to someone, sometimes I don't like passing things on because I like the fact that when I've created something, that is that satisfaction that you know that, oh, I made this presentation, or I made this resource here, or I worked out this handbook over here. It's nice to have that, but rather than getting stressed and actually trying to fit everything in, it's nice to pass things on sometimes what you can do.
Yeah.
So just another few questions. Do you take on too much? Sometimes when I was younger, I used to be a very big people pleaser. Anything anybody asked me, I'd be like, yeah, of course I can do it. Even in regard to me struggling to fit time in, I'd be like, yes, of course, I'll take that on. But now, as I've matured, as I've got more experience, I know when to say no. But even then, it can be a struggle.
Yeah.
Is there a time where you don't like to say no, or are you okay with saying no? So sometimes you've got to understand that you need to say no, that you can't take on anymore, And then a couple of other points. Do you need to delegate more, or do you need to take on more responsibility? So sometimes you'll get leaders that will delegate everything under the moon to everyone, and they'll probably not do much themselves. So, or do you need to take on more? You need to do that more, or do you need to take on more responsibility? And then at the end of it, you're just going to do an overall reflection on your practice. This is the last slide for here. So the way I do this, I'll look back on my last project, or I'll look back on the last session I taught. And then, so on here, I'd like you to just think back yourself for you when you're writing your assignment. Look back at your past month, look at the last project or task that you did, look at the last patient that you handled. Think back on how you spoke to them. What did you do? What was your body language like? Were you happy? Were you sad? Were you coming off well? Is there anything you would change? How would you do this? Or is there anything you would actually keep the same and say, actually, I like the way I go in and introduce myself to my patients. I like the way I speak to my colleagues. I want to make sure that I ask them, are you okay? How are you? Now, for me, if I see you 10 times down the hall within like 5-6 minutes, I've got a habit. I'll say, hello, hello, hello. So that's something that I try to come out of doing. But it's a natural thing for me that whenever I see someone, even if I've seen you 10 times, I'll still go hello to you.
Yeah, I'm just the same.
Yeah. And then sometimes you think, oh, maybe I'm being conveyed as a little bit too chirpy and not serious enough. But it's part of your personality. So I find it difficult to get out of that.
I do. It's a routine you get in.
And I always like to acknowledge people as well. So it's, I think it's nice for someone to know that you've noticed them.
Yeah.
And then again, like I was saying, so what are you going to do? That's the same. What are you going to carry forward into your daily practice? So just think back on any major task that you did last, even if it was just your work yesterday, what you did in your last meeting, or how you spoke to somebody in particular, and just reflect on your overall practice. I mean, on here, it's not you saying, you berating yourself and saying, I'm really bad at this, that, or the other. And it's also not you saying that I'm fantastic at everything, because everybody has a learning curve. Everybody has, even if it's a minor point, there's something that you will need to improve on, no matter how good at your job you are.
Yeah.
So that was 2.3. So it's quite simple, nice, easy one put in the middle there. And then the last one, this isn't a long one. It's explain how to review the effectiveness of partnership working and achieving the agreed outcomes. So as we've talked previously, we know that partnerships are not all the same. There's big companies, small companies, big organizations, voluntary organizations, lots of different people that are involved. Now, the best way to identify partnerships is if you've got some common features, because you need to be having a common vision, you need to be able to share risks and benefits, and also have a sense of co-creation from each other for a good partnership, for it to be effective. And then again, for effective partnerships, you need contributions from all of the parties. So not just one partnership doing all the work and the other one sitting back and enjoying the rewards. So on the following slides, we're just going to look at how we can measure the effectiveness of partnership working.
Yeah.
You need to have a good communication system. So again, we've said this so many times, and I did say we were going to be possibly going over the same features again and again over here. But make sure you're giving feedback, keep up to date with each other, and don't be afraid to give feedback, because that's how we all learn. So as long as you're doing it constructively and not being argumentative, that's the best thing to do. Do you constantly have to chase up some people for information, or does the information come to you easily? So these are some points.
Yeah.
Is there a good or bad impact of the service that you've provided? So are you doing good service for your service users, the families, the carers? Is it beneficial to them? If it's something that's causing them stress, or they're not happy with the outcomes, then to be honest, then it's not effective partnership. You need to work on it.
Yeah.
You look at feedback from your families or your colleagues or the service users, just to assess how things are going. And because they're the ones that are having the outcomes of this partnership, you need to know from the main source what they think is going on. Are they happy with having joint appointments and having one person seeing them, or do they want their regular person that they used to see originally back? So, because, you know, we form relationships with people, don't we?
Definitely.
Other ways to review the effectiveness is, have you met your agreed outcomes? Are you on track, or are you falling far from them? So regardless of where you are, what you do, what sector you're in, you've got to approach some things as a business. So you need to be making sure that your business objectives, so for within the NHS, within healthcare, it's the service users are the objectives there. Are they being looked after? Is your outcomes being done? Are you actually getting together and making joint care plans, or is it just exactly the same thing again?
Yeah.
So has a review of the care plan been made, or has it been adapted to reflect on the changes that have been made? So you work together, obviously, because you're all seeing the same person. You need to be working together and seeing what changes or adaptations can be made.
Yeah.
Are you able to see more service users? Do you have an access to a wider range of resources? Have you got better skills, or people with more skills? So all of these, that we've just looked at are just some points that help us review the effectiveness of partnership working. So when you're writing out your assignment, you can pop down some points and say, this is how I would review the effectiveness. If these points are being met, that means yes, that we've got a good partnership working system. If not, then there might be some changes that need to be made. So that was it for 2.4. So overall, we've just looked at enhancing partnership working and the contributions that are made, strengths and weaknesses, how to reflect on your own practice and improve it, and just some points that will help us review the effectiveness of partnership working. Is there anything you'd like to talk about or discuss or ask?
No, I'm quite happy with it, isn't it?
Yep. So I'll just turn the recording off.